The automatic doors of the airport terminal slid open, hitting us with a blast of cool, conditioned air that smelled like coffee and floor wax. I squeezed the handle of my carry-on bag, my other hand clutching our passports so tightly the edges were starting to bend. This was it. The Maldives. The trip we had spent 2 years saving for, sacrificing date nights and ordering takeout to make sure we could afford the overwater villa. I looked over at my husband, Lucian, expecting to see him beaming with the same excitement that was bubbling inside me. But he wasn't looking at me. His eyes were darting around the crowded check-in area, scanning the sea of travelers like he was looking for a lifeboat. "Babe, are you okay?" I asked, following his gaze. "We have plenty of time before the flight." That was when I saw her, Myria, his work wife. She was walking toward us with a confident strut, her heels clicking rhythmically on the linoleum floor. She wasn't dressed for a business meeting. She was wearing a flimsy sundress and a wide-brimmed hat, but what made my stomach drop all the way to my shoes was her luggage. She was dragging a sleek, matte black hardshell suitcase with a distinct red zipper. It was identical to the one Lucian had bought for himself just last week. Lucian's nervous smile appeared instantly as she stopped right in front of us. "Totem, surprise," he said, his voice pitching up an octave. "Myria had some vacation days, and I thought, since the villa is huge, she could just tag along. I thought you'd be fine with her coming along." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My name is Totem, and looking at their matching bags and his guilty face, I realized my marriage had ended before the plane even took off. I turned to the flight attendant. "Cancel his ticket," I said clearly. "Just mine." I didn't wait for an answer from Lucian. I didn't wait to hear his excuses or listen to him backtrack. I grabbed my boarding pass from the counter and turned on my heel, walking toward the security checkpoint with a speed I didn't know I possessed. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, but my face remained stone cold. Behind me, I could hear Lucian shouting my name, his voice sounding desperate and embarrassed, but I didn't falter. I didn't look back. The security line moved agonizingly slowly, but eventually I made it through. I walked to the gate and boarded the plane immediately. We had splurged on business class seats, another luxury meant for a romantic getaway. I found my seat, 4A, and stared at the empty seat beside me. 4B, it felt like a gaping hole, a physical representation of the void that had just opened up in my life. I leaned toward the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. From this angle, I had a perfect view of the gate area inside the terminal. I saw them. Lucian was waving his arms, arguing frantically with the gate agent. Myria stood next to him, arms crossed, looking more annoyed than apologetic. She leaned in and whispered something to him, placing a hand on his bicep, a touch that was far too familiar, far too comfortable. As the plane finally pushed back and the engines roared to life, a strange sensation washed over me. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. As the wheels lifted off the runway, taking me away from them, I pulled out my phone. I typed one message to Lucian before switching to airplane mode. "Enjoy your honeymoon, with her." The flight lasted hours, but I felt like I was frozen in time. I didn't watch any movies. I didn't eat the fancy meal they served. I just stared at the clouds, my mind replaying every interaction between Lucian and Myria over the last year. The late nights at the office, the constant texting, the way he would defend her if I ever made a comment about her boundaries. It was all there, red flags waving in my face that I had chosen to ignore because I wanted to believe in us. By the time the plane touched down, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the tarmac. I turned my phone off airplane mode as the plane taxied to the gate. Instantly, the device started vibrating in my hand, buzzing violently like it was about to explode. Notifications flooded the screen in a chaotic stream. 30 missed calls, 10 voicemail notifications, a barrage of text messages. They were all from Lucian, and the tone shifted from confusion to anger to panic. "Totem, pick up the phone. You can't just leave me here. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. This is insane. Answer me right now." Then, a message from Myria popped up. I felt a surge of nausea as I read her name. "You're crazy, Totem. It was a business trip anyway. You're overreacting and ruining everything for Lucian." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keypad. A business trip? On my honeymoon? The lie was so blatant it was almost impressive. I was about to type a furious response to tell her exactly where she could go when a different notification caught my eye. It was an email. The sender was Mr. Henderson, Lucian's boss. My breath hitched in my throat. Mr. Henderson was a serious man, the kind who didn't send emails unless it was urgent. I had only met him twice at company holiday parties. Why would he be emailing me? I opened the message, my hands trembling slightly as I zoomed in on the text. "Hi, Totem," the email began. I tried reaching Lucian, but it went straight to voicemail. I hope the wedding was wonderful. I just wanted to clarify something. I got an automatic reply from his email saying he is away on his honeymoon, but then I saw a leave request in the system for Myria for a personal vacation. I had no idea Myria was joining you too. We strictly prohibit team trips without prior approval, especially involving management. We will need to discuss Lucian's conduct on Monday. I read the paragraph 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The puzzle pieces slammed together. Myria had texted me claiming it was a business trip to justify her presence. Lucian had told me she was just tagging along on vacation, but to his boss, he hadn't said anything at all. It wasn't a business trip. It wasn't a coincidence. They had coordinated their time off. They had planned this. They intended to turn my honeymoon into their romantic getaway right under my nose. I realized then that they weren't just work friends who crossed a line. They were partners in a deep, calculated deception. They were lying to me, and they were lying to their company, and that lie was about to be their undoing. I didn't stay in the Maldives. The thought of sleeping in the honeymoon suite alone made my skin crawl. I took the next flight back home, running on pure adrenaline and bitter coffee. When I finally unlocked the front door of our house, the silence that greeted me was heavy and suffocating. It was supposed to be the home of a happy new couple. Now, it felt like a museum of a failed life. I didn't unpack. I dropped my bags in the hallway and walked straight to the home office Lucian and I shared. I sat down at the desk and opened our shared laptop. Lucian was lazy with his digital security. He used the same password for everything, usually his high school football jersey number. I typed it in, and the screen unlocked. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew I had to find proof. I needed to know how long this had been going on. I started clicking through folders. The pictures, the documents, the downloads. Everything looked normal until I found a folder on the desktop labeled Conference Notes. It seemed innocent enough, boring even, but when I clicked it open, there were no meeting minutes. Instead, there were subfolders labeled by month. I opened the most recent one. It was full of PDF downloads of emails and hotel bookings. My hands shook as I opened a file. It was an email thread between Lucian and Myria. They were planning a weekend strategy session 2 months ago. The hotel confirmation was attached, a romantic bed and breakfast 2 hours away. They weren't working. They were dating, and I had been at home, waiting for him to return from his business trip. I kept digging, my eyes scanning through months of betrayal. The emails were graphic, intimate, and cruel. They made fun of the way I dressed. They laughed about how gullible I was. But then I found one email that made me stop breathing. It was dated 6 months ago. The subject line was simply, "The dress." I clicked it open. It was a thread from the week I went wedding dress shopping. I remembered that day so vividly. I had been torn between 2 dresses. One was a sparkling white ball gown that made me feel like a princess. The other was a fitted ivory mermaid dress. I loved the white one, but Lucian had been so insistent that the ivory one was classier and more sophisticated. The email from Myria read, "Make sure she picks the ivory one. Ivory washes her out and makes her look pale. You'll look better in white when it's our turn. Don't let her shine too much." I gasped, a raw sound escaping my throat. Myria hadn't just stolen my husband, she had actively sabotaged my wedding day. She wanted me to look bad. She wanted to be the bride. The level of malice was sickening. She had been pulling the strings of my life for months, and Lucian had let her. I felt a cold hardness settle over my heart. The tears that had been threatening to fall evaporated. I stood up and walked to the printer. I printed everything. Every email, every receipt, every nasty comment. I punched holes in the pages and organized them into a thick folder. I grabbed a marker and wrote one word on the cover: receipts. I spent the next 2 days in a state of calculated silence. I didn't answer the phone. I didn't reply to the hundreds of texts piling up from Lucien. Rage is a powerful fuel, but I knew that unbridled anger would make me sloppy. I needed a strategy. I called Coralie. She had been my best friend since college, and conveniently she was also a ruthless divorce lawyer. We met at a quiet coffee shop on the edge of town. I slid the black folder across the table to her. She opened it, taking a sip of her latte, and as she flipped through the pages, her eyes grew wider and wider. "Tatum, this is..." "Wow," she said, tapping a page where they discussed spending our tax refund on a spa day for Myria. "This is absolute gold, but you have to listen to me. You cannot confront him yet. If you scream at him now, he'll go into defense mode. He'll hide money. He'll delete evidence." "So what do I do?" I asked, gripping my coffee cup. "I want to scream." "Don't," Coralie said, her voice sharp. "Let him hang himself. Let him come back and think he can talk his way out of it. Play the confused, hurt wife. Let him lie to you. We need him comfortable." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "Go to the bank right now. Open a separate account in your name only. Move half of the joint savings immediately, before he realizes you're making moves." Lucien finally came home on Sunday night. I was sitting on the living room couch, a book open on my lap that I hadn't read a single word of. The front door swung open, and he burst in, dragging his suitcase. He looked tan from the island sun, but his face was twisted in a mixture of exhaustion and arrogance. "Tatum, thank God you're here," he said, dropping his bags with a thud. "We need to talk. You completely overreacted at the airport. It was insane." He didn't apologize. He didn't ask how I was. He went straight to the attack. I marked my page slowly and looked up at him. "Did I asked, keeping my voice level. "Yes, Myria is just a friend." He threw his hands up, packing the room. "She needed a mental health break, and I was just trying to be a nice guy. You made a huge scene and embarrassed me for nothing." I watched him lie. It was fascinating in a sick way. "Maybe I did," I lied smoothly. "I was just so shocked." His shoulders dropped. He exhaled, thinking he had won. "Exactly. You were stressed from the wedding. It's okay. I forgive you." He forgave me. Later that night, while he was snoring in our bed, I sat in the guest room scrolling through social media. A notification popped up. Myria had just posted a photo. It was a selfie of her holding a cocktail, sitting on a balcony. I recognized the balcony. It was the honeymoon suite I had paid for. My phone instantly started buzzing. It wasn't Lucien this time, it was my friends. They were seeing the post, and they were putting the pieces together. Myria had captioned the photo: "Sun, sand, and secrets. With my favorite coworker, Paradise work trip, catch me if you can." The audacity was breathtaking. She was tagging the resort. She was wearing a white sundress. In the background of the photo, you could see a man's arm resting on the railing, wearing Lucien's watch. My friend Jessica texted, "Tatum, is that the resort you guys are at? Why is she there? Is that Lucien?" Another friend, Mike, sent a screenshot. "Dude, isn't this the view from the suite you showed us brochures for?" They were humiliating me publicly. They didn't care who saw. They thought they were untouchable because they thought I was a pushover. They thought I was upstairs crying. I felt a smile spread across my face. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who just watched the prey walk into the trap. Myria had just provided public, time-stamped proof of their whereabouts during company time. I took screenshots of everything. The post, the caption, the comments where she replied with winky faces to people asking who she was with. I opened my email and attached the files, addressing a new message to the HR department at their company. Monday morning arrived with a heavy, ominous silence in the house. Lucien got dressed for work, acting as if everything was back to normal. He whistled as he tied his tie. He kissed me on the cheek, a gesture that made my skin crawl so much I had to physically restrain myself from wiping it off, and left for the office. He had no idea what was waiting for him. I sat at the kitchen table, my phone in front of me. Around 10:00 a.m., my email inbox pinged. It was a reply from the head of HR. "Dear Totem," the email read, "thank you for bringing this to our attention. We take allegations of time theft and misuse of company funds very seriously. We also have a strict policy regarding undisclosed relationships between managers and subordinates. We will be launching an investigation immediately." I forwarded the email to Corsley. The twist was delicious. It wasn't just about cheating. Workplace fraternization violated Lucian's contract. Myria reported directly to Lucian on several projects. By taking her on a trip and lying about it being business, they had crossed a legal line. Corley texted back within seconds. "Perfect. This gives us leverage. If he gets fired for cause, it affects his future earning potential, but it also destroys his credibility in court. Now we prepare your exit and his downfall." For the next week, I played the role of the perfect, repentant wife. It was an Oscar-worthy performance. I cooked his favorite roast chicken. I listened to him complain about the strange vibe at the office without revealing that I was the architect of that vibe. I acted soft, forgiving, and compliant. I needed him to feel safe. I needed him to slip up. Every night, I secretly recorded our conversations on my phone, tucking it behind the fruit bowl or in my pocket. I needed him to admit to the affair in his own words. One evening over dinner, Lucian seemed particularly agitated. "Myria is having a really hard time at work," he muttered, stabbing a potato with his fork. "People are being cold to her. It's unfair." "Oh," I asked innocently, pouring him more wine. "Why would they be cold?" "Just office politics," he grumbled. Then he looked around the kitchen. "Honestly, Totem, the house is a bit of a mess. Myria would have handled that better. She's very organized. She doesn't let things pile up." The air left my lungs. He was comparing me to his mistress in my own house while eating the food I cooked. I gripped my fork until my knuckles turned white. "I'll try harder," I said softly, while mentally adding another $10,000 to the settlement amount I was going to demand. While Lucian was busy fighting fires at work, Coralie and I were busy following the money. We spent hours going over bank statements, credit card bills, and investment portfolios. It was worse than I thought. It was devastating. "Look at this," Coralie said, pointing to a series of withdrawals from our joint savings account, the account we were using to save for a down payment on a house. $500 here, $200 there, $1,000 for consulting fees. Coralie raised a skeptical eyebrow. I traced the lines with my finger, cross-referencing the dates with his calendar. The dates matched the weekends he was away for conferences. "He's using the honeymoon fund," I realized, feeling a wave of sickness wash over me. "He used our house money to pay for hotel rooms with Myria. He used our future to pay for his affair." It was a gut punch. All those months I had skipped buying new clothes, all those times we ate cheap pasta to save up, he was blowing it on champagne and sweets for her. Coralie slammed the files shut with a thud. "We have enough. We're going to freeze these accounts tomorrow. He thinks he's clever, but he's sloppy." She looked me in the eye, her expression fierce. "He's about to fund your new life, Totem. We are going to take back every single penny." Friday marked exactly 1 month since our wedding, our month-iversary. Lucian came home carrying a small, glossy gift bag. He looked pleased with himself, clearly thinking the storm had passed and he had successfully managed his wife. "Happy anniversary, babe," he said, handing me the bag with a charming smile. "I wanted to get you a little something to make up for the bumpy start." I took the bag, my heart pounding. I pulled out the box. It was a bottle of expensive perfume. I recognized the bottle immediately. It was floral, heavy, and musky. It was the exact scent Myria wore. I had smelled it on her at the airport. I had smelled it on his clothes for months, thinking it was just the smell of the office air freshener. He had bought me his mistress's perfume. "Do you like it?" he asked, watching my face. "The sales lady said it was very popular, top of the line." "It's lovely," I said, my voice tight. I pulled the box out of the bag. Then I saw it. On the side of the gift bag near the handle, there was a small smudge. It was a faint red mark, a lipstick mark. It wasn't mine. I didn't wear red lipstick. Myria did. She had probably helped him pick it out. Or maybe she had touched the bag just to leave her mark, a secret taunt. I knew this was the moment. I couldn't keep pretending. The nausea was rising in my throat, but I forced it down. I needed one final confession to nail the coffin shut. I quietly reached into my pocket and turned on the voice recorder app on my phone. "Lucien," I started, keeping my voice low and trembling. "Why this perfume? It's really not my style, it's so heavy." He sighed, annoyed that I wasn't jumping for joy. "I don't know, Totem, it's sexy. You could use a little more. Edge, you've been so boring lately." "Boring?" I asked, stepping closer. "I'm your wife. I'm the woman you married." "Yeah, exactly," he scoffed, throwing his hands up. "It's just the same old thing. Myria is exciting, she takes risks, she's fun, you just exist." He stopped. He realized what he said a second too late. His eyes widened. "I didn't mean it like that. I just mean she's a go-getter at work." "No," I said, standing up straighter. "You said she excites you." "You just don't excite me like she does," he snapped, his frustration boiling over. "Are you happy? Is that what you wanted to hear? She makes me feel alive." I looked at him, feeling absolutely nothing but cold resolve. "Yes, that is exactly what I wanted to hear." I walked out of the room. I stopped the recording and hit send. I emailed the audio file to Coralie with the subject line, "Irrefutable." The following Tuesday, the bomb finally went off at Lucien's office. The HR investigation concluded. My screenshots, the flight records, the internal emails I had forwarded, and the sheer volume of evidence were impossible to ignore. Lucien came home early. He didn't use his key. He slammed the door open so hard the handle punched a hole in the drywall. His face was purple with rage, veins bulging in his neck. "What did you do?" he screamed, throwing his briefcase across the room. "What did you do, Totem?" I was sitting at the kitchen island, calmly drinking a cup of herbal tea. "I don't know what you mean," I said, not flinching. "HR called me in. They suspended Myria. They're talking about a disciplinary hearing for me." He was packing around the kitchen like a caged animal. "They have photos from the honeymoon. They have the emails. They even have the receipt for the hotel. How did they get those?" He stopped and looked at me, realization dawning on him. You hacked my computer." "I didn't hack anything," I corrected him coolly. "I looked at our shared laptop, the one you left on the desk unlocked." "You ruined my career," he shouted, stepping toward me aggressively. "Over a stupid jealousy fit, you destroyed everything I worked for." He was panting, staring at me, waiting for me to apologize. He was waiting for me to cry, to beg for forgiveness, to promise to fix it. He was so used to me fixing everything for him. I stood up slowly. I was done acting. I was done being the small, quiet wife. "Funny," I said, my voice ice cold and steady. "I thought Myria was helping your career. Wasn't she the go-getter? I'm sure she can fix this for you. She's so organized, right?" He stared at me, his mouth hanging open. He had never seen me like this. He didn't know how to handle a Totem who wasn't afraid of him. "You're crazy," he whispered, stepping back. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm also prepared." I pointed to the granite counter behind him. There was a thick manila envelope sitting there, stark against the dark stone. He turned and looked at it. "What is that?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Open it," I said. He ripped the envelope open, papers flying out. His eyes scanned the first page. His hands started to tremble violently. It wasn't a love letter. It was a petition for divorce. "You're divorcing me?" he asked, his voice small and pathetic. The rage was gone, replaced by pure shock. "Did you think I was going to stay?" I asked, leaning against the counter. "After you took her on our honeymoon, after you spent our house money on her, after you mocked my wedding dress." "Totem, we can work this out," he stammered, sweating. "I'll fire her, I'll cut her off, I promise, please." "It's too late, Lucien," I said. "Coralie filed these this morning." He looked at the papers again, reading the header. "Coralie, Your friend Corley. My lawyer Corley, I corrected. He reached for his phone, probably to call his own lawyer or move money. He tapped the screen furiously, trying to order a ride or check his bank app. He frowned. He tried again. Why isn't my card working? He muttered. I just tried to order an Uber. It says declined. Oh, I said, picking up my tea again and taking a sip. Corley filed an emergency motion to freeze marital assets due to dissipation of funds. Since you were spending our savings on your mistress, the judge agreed to lock everything down until the settlement is reached. Lucian stared at his phone, realizing all his assets were frozen, including the lease payments on his luxury car. He was trapped. The fallout was swift and brutal. Lucian was paralyzed, but Myria wasn't going down quietly. That night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I knew immediately who it was. You ruined us both, the text read. I hope you're happy. You're a bitter, jealous woman who couldn't keep her man. You think you won, but you're just alone. I looked at the message. A month ago, those words would have cut me deep. Now, they just looked pathetic. I typed back, you did that yourself. And by the way, does your fiancé know about your business trip yet? I hadn't mentioned it before, but Myria was engaged. A nice guy named Greg who worked in the accounting department. I had found him on social media during my late-night digging. He seemed sweet, totally oblivious to what she was doing. I didn't wait for her reply. I sent Greg a folder via Facebook Messenger. It contained the screenshots of the text messages where Myria mocked him for being boring, and the photos of her and Lucian in the Maldives. 10 minutes later, I got a notification. Myria's relationship status on Facebook changed from engaged to single. Myria's fiancé had found the screenshots and ended their engagement immediately. News travels fast in a corporate environment, especially scandalous news. Within days, the story of the honeymoon affair had spread through Lucian's office like wildfire. It spilled over into our friend group. The screenshots I had sent to HR had somehow leaked, or maybe Greg had shared them in his anger. I didn't ask, and I didn't care. Lucian became a pariah. He wasn't the cool, successful manager anymore. He was the guy who took his mistress on his honeymoon and got caught. I went to a mutual friend's birthday party that weekend. I walked in with my head held high, wearing a red dress. People whispered, but they weren't whispering about me being a victim. They were whispering about how I had destroyed him. Did you hear? My friend Jessica whispered to me, handing me a drink. They call him Honeymoon Guy now. No one will sit with him at lunch. He sits in his car to eat. Lucian tried to call me multiple times a day, begging me to tell people to stop, to put out a statement saying it was a misunderstanding. I blocked his number. Then the final blow came. On Monday morning, his boss, Mr. Henderson, called Lucian into his office for a final meeting. I heard about the meeting from Corley, who heard it from the company's legal counsel during a settlement negotiation. Mr. Henderson didn't mince words. Lucian had violated the code of conduct, misused company funds by trying to expense parts of the trip, and created a hostile work environment. You're fired, Lucian, Mr. Henderson had said. Effective immediately, security will escort you out. Lucian was walked out of the building by 2 security guards, holding a cardboard box of his things. He had lost his job, his reputation, and his wife in the span of 3 weeks. The irony was delicious. The work wife, who was supposed to make his life more exciting, had cost him his livelihood. Myria was fired too, of course, for gross misconduct. They were both out on the street, unemployed and disgraced. Just as I hung up the phone with Corley, hearing the good news, I got another call. It was the court clerk. Ms. Totham, the voice said professionally, the judge has signed the final decree. Your divorce is finalized. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for a month. It was over. 3 months later, my life looked completely different. I used my share of the settlement, which was significant, thanks to Corley's brilliant lawyering and the proof of his financial infidelity, to get a new place. I moved into a bright, airy apartment overlooking the city skyline. It had floor-to-ceiling windows and absolutely no memories of Lucien. I filled it with fresh flowers, colorful art, and furniture that I liked. No more dark leather couches or masculine decor that Lucien insisted on. I was unpacking the last box of books when I heard a timid knock on the door. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. I froze. Lucien stood there. He looked terrible. He had lost weight, his clothes were wrinkled and stained, and he hadn't shaved in days. He looked nothing like the arrogant man at the airport. He looked broken. "How did you find me?" I asked, opening the door just a crack and blocking the entrance with my body. "Corley's office gave me the address for the final paperwork exchange," he rasped. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Can I come in, please?" "No," I said firmly. "You cannot." He slumped against the doorframe, looking defeated. "Tatum, please, I messed up. I know I messed up bad. I can't find a job. Word got around the industry. No one will hire me. They all know." "That sounds like a personal problem," I said, feeling zero sympathy. "I miss you," he pleaded, tears welling up in his eyes. "We were good together before her. She manipulated me. We can start over. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. Just give me a chance." I looked at him, this broken, selfish man who had discarded me so easily when he thought he had a better option. I searched my heart for any lingering love or hate, but I felt absolutely nothing, just indifference. "You can't start over," I said softly. "You already did without me at the airport." He reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled back sharply. I reached into the console table by the door and picked up a white envelope. "Here," I said. "Since you're here, you might as well take this. It came for you." It was a hotel invoice from the resort in the Maldives. He opened it with shaking hands, squinting at the paper. He looked confused. "What is this? It says refund processed, but for the whole trip." "Yes," I smiled, leaning against the doorframe. "I contacted the resort the day I left. I explained the situation, that the booking was fraudulent because it was paid for with stolen marital funds. They were very understanding. They canceled the rest of your stay after you left and refunded the entire amount." "But where did the money go?" he asked, looking up at me. "To the card on file," I said, which, by the time the refund hit, was my personal account. The judge awarded me the full cost of the honeymoon as emotional damages. His jaw dropped. He realized what had happened. He was broke, unemployed, and desperate, and I had the money he had tried to spend on his mistress. "So, thanks for the vacation money," I added cheerfully. "Oh, and you're covering the taxes on that refund. It's in the divorce decree on page 42. Corley made sure of it." I closed the door in his face and locked the deadbolt. I listened to his footsteps retreat down the hall. I never saw Lucien again. Months later, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. The profile picture showed a woman who looked tired, worn out, and panicked. It was Myria. "He left me," the message said. "Lucien left me. He blamed me for everything. He said I ruined his life. And Tatum, I'm pregnant. I have nothing. I can't get a job. He won't answer my calls. I don't know who else to turn to." She was looking for sympathy. She was looking for money. She thought that maybe, because I was a nice woman, the woman she had mocked for being boring, I would help her. I stared at the screen. I thought about the white dress email. I thought about the favorite coworker caption. I thought about her smiling at the gate while my heart broke into a million pieces. I typed a reply. "That's your honeymoon baby, not my problem. You wanted his life. You got it." I hit send. Then I blocked the number for good. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, feeling the cool evening breeze on my face. Tomorrow, I was leaving. I had rebooked the trip to the Maldives. But this time, I wasn't going as a wife. I wasn't going as a plus one. I wasn't going to please anyone else. I was going alone. I imagined myself standing on that white sand beach, the one I was meant to visit with Lucien. He thought he was taking his work wife on our honeymoon. He thought he could erase me and replace me without consequence. Instead, I turned his betrayal into my rebirth. I smiled, closing my leather-bound journal where I had written down the entire story. I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't angry. I was free. I whispered into the wind, watching the city lights twinkle below me, the final words of my old life fading away into the night. I left him at the gate, and that's exactly where he stayed.